welcome to the show today. I'm here with Adam Peters. Adam, thanks so much for being with me.
Dude, thanks for having me, man. It's awesome to be here.
Absolutely. We're at the ICMG convention down here in Tampa, Florida, and so glad to be here. As we dive in, I'd love to hear a little bit about your story, man.
Yeah, man. Where do you want me to start?
Let's hear a little bit about leadership. This is the Insurance Leadership Podcast, so a little bit about leadership, and then maybe your history in the military.
Yeah, so leadership, man. That's a great word. All I know about leadership comes from my time in the Army, obviously, and so I joined the Army when I was 17. Spent a year on the delayed entry program. The main goal, I had a buddy that was ahead of me a year, and he went to basic training between junior and senior year. And I saw all the changes in him, and I was like, I need to do something like that. So that was like my main goal. I missed the ship date by like a day, so I couldn't do that. So I ended up spending a year on the delayed entry program, and I would leave for basic training a month after I graduated high school, and then I would spend, the next 13 years learning leadership, being trained from the minute you get in there on how to lead, and all the other components that go with that: adaptability, problem solving. Discipline is my fundamental thing.
Yeah,
and so. Spent every other year deployed while I was in the military. So from late 2004 until my last one was Afghanistan in 2012. Came home from that, had a bunch of surgeries, and they told me I couldn't do it anymore. And
okay.
So that kind of set me up for everything that I do now. And it's obviously a lot more convoluted journey than
Sure. You did a great job of compacting 13 years into a minute. You did great. That's awesome. So that time in the military, what were some of, you said discipline was a big thing. Was that going in kind of hard for you, and then coming out you were a completely different person?
That's such a funny question. No, I thought basic training was a joke.
Really?
I did. Yeah, I was a 3-sport athlete in high school, all 4 years. So football, wrestling, track, right? So always in pretty good shape. Discipline is something that comes with sports, right? So, that wasn't the hard piece. I expected basic training to be like what you see in the movies, like Full Metal Jacket, getting beat on and just, and don't get me wrong. It had its moments. It's more of a mind thing than it was physical. And then, after the first 6 weeks, I think, you're asking me to remember 22 years ago.
You're doing great.
The first 6 weeks, I think, is what they call total control, and basically you have no freedom whatsoever as individual privates or whatever. You come off of that, and then the mind games stop, right? Because they've broken you down and they've built you back up, or starting to build you back up into what they want you to be. So, after the first 6 weeks, it's just like, okay, can we graduate and can I go to the real Army?
Yeah.
Because this is silly.
Yeah. Well, tell me, this is kind of a two-part question, but I want to hear about your transition from military service to civilian life. And then I want to hear a little bit more about what folks who are making that transition should expect.
Yeah, man. To answer the first part of that question, my transition, I'm writing a book about this right now, but through that process, I've realized the transition, I had a false transition for the first 4 years. So the transition program to get out is what I have a fundamental issue with, because they're not preparing people the way that they should to get out. They're not covering things like identity and purpose and encouraging people to figure out who they are as an individual without the uniform. And
is that because they're in that group? They know their identity in the group, but they don't know their individual identity?
Well, I think if you take somebody like me who joined at 17 years old, all I knew my whole adult life was how to be a soldier. Yeah. Right. So
even just the natural growing up of going from 17 to your late 20s or even mid 20s, you're a different person.
Completely different person. Then you add in 4 combat deployments and just that culture, right?
Sure.
But so my transition, the first 4 years, I do what they say. Use your GI Bill, go to college, get the degree, and it's just a check the box thing. And through the work that I do with my own podcast and really trying to be an advocate for change in the transition space, what I found out is, I'm not going to get this right, but the transition program for all of the military was actually put in place because I want to say it's after Vietnam, they had so many guys getting out and not being able to get jobs, right? Because of society and how they viewed those individuals coming home, baby killers, being spit on, all of that. But they basically put a transition program in to help people get jobs so they didn't have to pay unemployment benefits. And so if you just follow the money, you figure out like, this isn't to help us. This is truly a check the box thing. And it hasn't changed in 50 years. So here we are, they still give the same advice. Here's 300 million different resources. We're not going to give you any time to digest them or understand how to implement them or the whole breadth of what these resources can do for you. And oh, by the way, you've got this really cool thing called a GI Bill. Go get you a degree and good luck in corporate America. And that's the fundamental problem. There's no encouraging, discovering who you are outside of the institution that you've just spent an entire career in. And I think this applies fundamentally to anybody who serves. It doesn't matter if you serve 2 years or you serve 22 years. You're going to go through this because think about the military. Everything's done for you. You answer to somebody always, no matter what rank you are. You always have a boss. Somebody's always telling you where to be, when to be there, who to be there with, what to be wearing when you're going to do it. And for me, growing up, 17 to 30, like that was my whole life. So that goes away the minute you get out. You no longer have that. Imagine that adjustment.
It's huge, man. Yeah. It's not a gradual faucet turning off. It's
No.
just a spigot that's off immediately.
Yeah. And, the other problem with the transition is for guys like me, like I went to an appointment one day and the next thing I know, I'm in a med board process. And then the med board process, while you're getting out, there's like no kind of, and when I was going through it 10 years ago, there was no really situational awareness on where you're at in the process. And then your career just ends one day, literally just ends. You've got orders, you go pick up your DD-214, you sign whatever, and that's it. You're no longer in. So at what point, I did a condensed ACAP class and all of this, but at what point did I have a chance to really discover who was Adam Peters?
Yeah. Well, for people who are listening and maybe they're making this transition, I know we're going to dive into this a little more later, but just kind of give them a nugget right now. Like, what advice would you have for them? Like, they're approaching the end of their service, and thank you for your service. Thank them for their service, but they're approaching the end of that, and they're trying to make this transition. What advice for them?
Stop running. Face yourself in the mirror. Ask yourself the tough questions. It's honestly the best advice I can give you, because if you don't do that immediately upon getting out, you're gonna fumble through life until you do that. You'll take the first corporate job because it pays a salary. We're told that success looks like a six-figure salary, right? But moreover, ask yourself, what does success look like to me? That's where you have to start, because it doesn't look the same to me as it may to you or anybody listening to this.
Yeah. Well, tell us a little bit about the Stronghold community.
Yeah, man. The Stronghold, it's like a love-hate relationship. I had a bunch of mentors tell me not to start a community. It's a time suck and it's a lot of energy. And I did it anyway because I really believe that spaces on the internet need to be, better. I created the Stronghold to originally, I thought I was going, kind of the direction of the path back to purpose is through entrepreneurship. And then what I found out talking to over 100 veterans on my podcast is really I'm being an advocate for the transition and putting that on display. So I started the community with the idea that Facebook groups are toxic and they're terrible. So I wanted it to be the antithesis of that. I just really wanted veterans who are getting out or who are already out, who have lost their way, to come and have a space where they can get access to people like me who figured it out. And it's truly a member-driven community. I don't create courses in there. There's a couple of courses that I put in there early on based on some feedback that you like networking course. People don't know how to network. And your network, man, it's the reason I'm sitting here right now. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like just a random drive across the state to Tampa today to do a live in-person podcast because of a network. Yeah. And so that's what the Stronghold is. We have 66 members in there now. Launched it in August, and it seems like every time I get in front of more veterans and people find out, they come and join. It's not as active as I'd like it to be, but that's kind of the game when you're running a member-driven community.
You're starting, it sounds like. That's very exciting.
So I have no idea how it's going to make money. I don't really care. I just want to provide a space for them to get actionable advice and be able to be vulnerable online, with what they're going through in their transition. And it started because when I was in flight school after the Army, I was in instruments and I went to a couple of these groups and I would ask questions of the professionals in the industry and I get ripped to shreds. just like, oh, you should know this. And it's like, man, I'm a brand new student instrument pilot,
right.
So that's really what it is.
A safe place.
Yeah. Safe place. Encourage vulnerability, because we're not encouraged to talk about the things that we're going through. That's the biggest problem with the transition, is we're largely left to think that we have to do this on our own.
Yeah.
That's not how it has to be.
Yeah. Even sitting here listening to this, I mean, I made a few transitions and pivots in my life, but I mean, I cannot imagine just how huge that is, not just emotionally, but like your identity, your career, everything's being shifted. That's huge, man. Yeah. Well, you mentioned the podcast. Tell our listeners a little bit more about the podcast.
Yeah. So I have this Strategic Veteran podcast. And like I mentioned, it started as this idea that the path back to purpose for veterans was entrepreneurship, mainly because it's a never ending mission. And so you have full control over it. Our transitions are so messed up because of what they're not teaching. And it just kind of became clear after I recorded 85 from May to December of last year. And, studying those transcripts.
And you put in some reps. That's a lot of episodes.
I'm driven, man. I got one speed and it's going.
Right?
Yeah. But, studying those transcripts and asking questions of those transcripts, you start to find these 15 common themes. And the two biggest things are identity and purpose.
Yeah.
And, number 3 being community or network, right? So everything that I'm doing now is focusing on really encouraging veterans to get out of their own way and figure out who they are when the uniform comes off.
That's great. Is that a tagline? That should be a tagline.
It should be.
Really good. That's good. Yeah. Feel free to use that. Well, tell me more about the entrepreneurial side of it. As an entrepreneur myself, I know how much that's helped me in my journey, even with my identity. There's a reciprocity there as I worked in the world and kind of figured out who I was. But
yeah, I think for me, the reason I thought the path back to purpose is entrepreneurship is because it gives you complete and total control over your time. And most of us hate having to go work for somebody. An example of mine is working through college, regular retail jobs or whatever, having to take PTO to go to a VA appointment. Like, what is that? Like, why should I have to do that? Like, why is that not just an accepted, and then being made to feel like, I could do better with scheduling those appointments for like my off time. And it's like, I don't think you understand how the VA healthcare system works. You know what I mean? Like I don't get to say when I want to go to this appointment. They just tell me when the next available one is, which is usually 90 days or more away. Mm-hmm. And so, I forgot what the question was.
But no, you're good. Just that role that entrepreneurship.
Yeah,
maybe it's empowering. Is that?
It's empowering. I mean, you get to control your time. You just get to do something that aligns with who you are as a person. So your core beliefs, values, and passions, and turn it into a business because it's 2025. The internet is a multi-trillion-dollar industry, and all you have to do is just get into that stream and take a little piece of that for yourself.
Which, I mean, the biggest part of entrepreneurship is not just creativity, but that discipline. And so many of these guys getting out of service, they do have that element that serves them really well.
I agree with what you're saying. I don't think it has anything to do with creativity. It has everything to do with discipline and mindset. Can you show up every day without seeing results that you expect to see until you wake up on a random Tuesday and all of a sudden
you're like, hey, I got an email from that person I talked to 6 months ago.
You wake up one day and you're drowning in work. Your brain hasn't caught up with the capacity to handle the work that's coming in, and now you've leveled up and you see the fruits of all your labor over the last 6 months. You know what I mean?
Very cool. Yeah.
And so for me, it's just, I don't know, it's just fun. Nobody gets to tell me what to do. It's Monday, February 3rd, and I just drove across the state to come be here with you guys, and I didn't have to ask permission from anybody. Right.
Well, thanks for doing that.
Yeah, no, thank you guys for having me.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like with the podcast and with the Stronghold community, like there's this holistic wellness involved where it's not just physical, it's not just emotional, it's mental. Can you talk to that a little bit?
Yeah. So in July of 2023, I was blessed enough to get picked up by Heroic Hearts Project to go to Peru and do a week-long ayahuasca retreat. And it changed my entire life, everything about my life. I've since lost 100 pounds. Everything that you see that I have built since basically November of 2023. So it just gave me perspective. It taught me how to love and respect myself. It introduced me to how food and pharma in the United States are actually not doing us any favors. In fact, they're making us sicker. It really introduced me to things like yoga, meditation, breath work, grounding, gratitude practices, abundance mindset, growth mindset. And so all of these things, I'm an avid practitioner of myself. I spend, my evenings using cannabis and looking inward to deal with whatever I've got to deal with for myself. So I just think that all of these things are free modalities of healing, and we don't need to go to the VA and become zombies on pills. And I like to tell people these are the best kept secrets. That they just, I'm upset that they've kept them from us because they cost nothing and they make your life infinity times better.
Yeah. What about the emotional side? I feel like maybe you're speaking to that some, but what does that look like for someone who's getting out of service to have emotional wholeness in their life?
It's so important, man. Again, going back to the vulnerability and stuff like that, sharing what you're going through, acknowledging what your feelings are and exploring your feelings. If you need to cry, cry. Like, it's a huge chunk of your life that you're walking away from or being forced away from.
You almost have to mourn.
Yeah. And I think, I was raised in, I'm a product of the mid 80s. So I was raised like as a male, we don't show emotion, and that's weakness. Right. And I'm here to tell you the opposite. It's probably the strongest thing you can do is to be vulnerable, be that example for somebody who may be going through what you're going through. So if you look at any of my content, my newsletter, the podcast show notes, I talk about everything publicly. I don't want to be an influencer or a thought leader where people look at me and see you've got 7,500 followers on a platform and you're this untouchable, like, not human person. I'm very human, and I want people to understand that you can get to where I'm at by doing the same things that I've done and just feeling and being public about it. And I think that's why I'm having success. Is authenticity is the new digital currency, and I refuse to be anything other than who I am.
Yeah, no doubt, man. And part of that emotional health is the human experience, right? Stoicism has a lot of great ideas, but I mean, it's not a full human experience if you don't feel those range of emotions and learn how to express them. And I, as well, child of mid 80s, and so that was not suppress your emotions. Yeah. Don't talk about it like this. But as a leader, like, that's such an important thing to be in tune with your emotions. Like, well, I feel fear here. Well, maybe this is a bad decision. I should stop for a minute and think about this. It's very, very important. Man, I love what you're doing. You also emphasize strategic partnerships in your work. Why is that so important?
Yeah, man. So I really emphasize strategic partnerships in the idea that, like, I made a lot of mistakes when I first started down this entrepreneurial journey or trying to figure out what I wanted to do with my life that's in alignment with who I am as a person. And that looked like, spending $1,000 on a course that tells you that, it's got the secrets inside. And caveat to this is the secret is the hard work. There's no shortcut. The shortcut is doing the hard work. So all these gurus that are telling you that if you buy their $1,000 course, you'll make money in 30 days, they're lying to you. So don't fall for that. That's why I emphasize strategic partnerships, particularly through the Stronghold, is because, my experience in the insurance industry, like we were talking about before we started recording, was not the greatest. And I don't want people to have to fall for that and go through what I had to go through. Yeah. So, for example, the insurance industry, I have two women who are amazing women, doing the right work on the insurance side of things. So I can get kickbacks for sending them people who join their team or buy policies from them, right? So it's a way for me to drive revenue, but also provide vetted resources and opportunities for the members of my community. I have a husband and wife team. I don't know anything about franchises at all. I know that I never want to own one, right? I don't want to buy a job. And I have a husband and wife team they make no money off of selling the franchise. They get paid by the franchisor. And so they've been vetted by me. I've had multiple conversations with them. I know their heart's in the right place. They're not just going to take advantage of veterans to make money. But, I make a little bit of money if somebody goes through their program and buys a franchise. Yeah. And so I have this idea for the community. I don't know how I get there or what it all will be, but I want it to be the premier veteran resource online. And I want it to be real people with real opportunities that are doing it for the right reasons, and not just trying to make a quick buck off of veterans or like Fortune 500 companies do, where they just hire veterans because they get tax breaks or whatever.
Sure. Yeah, that's awesome, man. Thanks for your work. As we're kind of wrapping up, I'd love to hear what are some of your big takeaways, big lessons learned over the last few years? You've seen so many different stories. You mentioned one earlier, that authenticity is huge in what we're doing. What are some others?
Man, for me, it's authenticity, it's mindset, and it's the discipline. Discipline it's like my foundational kind of value within everything that I do. Do I feel like showing up every day? No, but having the discipline to show up every day and understand that, showing up every day and being just 1% better will lead to so many. I can't tell you how many different opportunities have come my way. In fact, a poor kid from Indiana growing up, I would have never expected opportunities like this to be coming my way. And you can ask my wife sitting right over there, like, I say no to more opportunity now, which has been a skill I've had to learn. So I would say, authenticity really is my biggest number one thing. Like, be who you are always, and don't let society tell you that you need to fit into this box. We're human beings. We weren't made to fit in these boxes. We were made to love one another because we're all connected, but to also to be in service of others. So find something in your community that you're passionate about and then pursue it. It happens to be that I love being a leader. I'd always said, getting out of the Army, I'm going to find a way to be a leader again, whether that's through being a civilian on post and working or whatever. Never in my wildest dreams did I think that I would be this I don't know, cringe-word thought leader on LinkedIn and social media in the veteran transition space. And it's pretty cool. And how I got here, I showed up every day and I took the guardrails off and I just completely was myself. Yeah. Long hair, beard, potty mouth, tattoos. I don't care. Like, I'm not gonna, change who I am for anybody anymore, because I think part of it's because I'm motivated to just prove to people that you can look a certain way and still have great success. Yeah.
That's awesome, man. Well, what's your hope next few years? You've done so much in such a short span.
Dude, my biggest hope is to make change at a DoD level, to make enough noise that the people who have the power will listen. And I think there's a real possibility that might happen by the end of this year. Now, getting things changed is going to be a completely different
conversation started.
You know what I mean? But let's get the conversation started. Let's get put in front of the right people this year. That's kind of the goal. And honestly, just to help as many people improve their situation in life as I possibly can. I have really no goal. Obviously I have, an MRR goal that I'd like to get to with some other opportunities that I have going on. And my wife and I travel the world and kind of work from anywhere, but genuinely just to keep helping people. That's really all I care about. I've really decided this is my life's work, is advocating for veterans in the transition and veterans in general. And I think I'm doing a great job at it, man, because people keep coming to me. And, now I'm faced with a dilemma. Like, there's only so many hours in a day. And like, how do I keep helping people on a one-on-one basis without feeling like a scumbag for taking money from them or whatever. So that's really no agenda, man. Just double down on everything I've been doing. Yeah.
That's great. Well, man, thanks so much for your time today.
Yeah, thank you for having me. This is a blast. I love doing this.
Awesome. Thanks so much for watching another episode of the Insurance Leadership Podcast, everyone.